Huntington's disease is a neurodegenerative disease caused by the excessive repeat of a 3-base nucleotide sequence on the 4th chromosome in the human genome. The CAG sequence codes for the production of glycine. It is typical to find those affected by the gene with over 40 repetitions of the 3-base sequence in the gene locus. The more insertions of glycine into the sequence, the more likely it is for a carrier to have an early age of onset of the disease. Because the disease is caused by a gene, it is heritable from parent to child. With one parent who has the disease, the child has a 50% chance of inheriting the gene mutation to cause the disease, as illustrated by this pedigree. The impact of the disease on the child is dependent on the severity of the parent's mutation. The disease will typically add more and more extra bases with each generation it is passed on to, therefore worsening the disease for the offspring.
To start off, I will be talking about how Huntington's affects people. The symptoms experienced by people with Huntington's disease can be divided into 3 main types: involuntary movements, cognitive problems, and behavioral symptoms. When a person has Huntington's disease, they experience involuntary movements. This is known as chorea, which is the Greek word for dance. At the beginning, people appear to be fidgety, but then the fidgets turn into involuntary movements. However, many of the people are unaware of the involuntary movements because Huntington's also affects people's awareness of their own bodies. For example, when people are walking, they tend to get slower and slower and have many involuntary movements that they're completely unaware of. Here is a clip of a man named Daniel who is showing us how Huntington's has affected his ability to walk. Speaking becomes difficult for people with Huntington's disease, as their speech can become slurred and difficult to understand. Some people lose their speech for good. Here is Daniel again, attempting to introduce himself and sit still.
Hello, my name is Daniel Huntington. I'm 33, and I was diagnosed in 97.
Many people lose a lot of weight because swallowing becomes difficult for them, so they often have to go on high-calorie food diets, supplements, or have a feeding tube inserted. Now we're going to get into the cognitive aspect. People who suffer from Huntington's have trouble making decisions because the ability to concentrate becomes difficult. Sometimes if you ask them a question, there will be a delay in the response time because it takes longer for them to process what has been said. Now on to behavioral. Many people with Huntington's experience depression. Depression is actually a symptom of the disease. People will be in denial and not think they have any symptoms at all, but this is due to the cognitive problems and them not actually being aware that anything is happening. Huntington's affects every person differently, so some people may experience all the symptoms we talked about, and some might experience only a few. Even 2 people from the same family can have very different symptoms.
There are different methods in detecting Huntington's in at-risk individuals. Genetic testing can be done by doctors in order to locate a defective gene in an individual's DNA sequence. Another method is predictive testing. Predictive testing is usually done in cases where there is a history of Huntington's in the family. Predictive testing is a form of genetic testing. However, individuals do not display symptoms at the moment. Predictive testing is a way of giving an idea of whether or not an individual will have a disorder or mutation. Mothers who fear for the health of their child can also undergo prenatal testing, which involves identifying any risks in the mother as well as the baby during pregnancy. Now, although Huntington's currently has no cure, there are various methods of treatments and therapies. Experts encourage those affected to maintain good health through constant exercise and a healthy diet. By doing so, effects of Huntington's can be minimized. Physical therapy is a great method of exercise for those affected. Apart from physical therapy, many affected by the disorder also undergo speech therapy and psychotherapy to help behavioral and speech problems as well as coping methods. Those affected by Huntington's do not have to fight the disorder alone and have various outlets to help lessen the impact on their lives.